A company issues iPads to employees and wants to ensure that the devices update automatically during non-working hours. What must be in place for automatic updates to install successfully? Select two answers. A. Device must be charging. B. Device must be unlocked. C. Device must be connected to Wi-Fi. D. Device must be running on battery. Correct answers. A. Device must be charging. C. Device must be connected to Wi-Fi. Now let's take a moment to explain why these are the correct answers. To begin with, automatic updates are scheduled to install during non-working hours, typically overnight. For this to happen, the device must be charging. iPads are designed not to install updates when running on battery, as the process can consume significant power and might interrupt the update if the battery runs out. Additionally, the device must be connected to Wi-Fi. This is essential because downloading updates requires a stable internet connection. Without Wi-Fi, the update process cannot proceed as mobile data connections are not used for large downloads by default. On the other hand, the device does not need to be unlocked. In fact, Apple devices are designed to process these updates while the device is locked and idle. Finally, the device must not be running on battery power. Being plugged in ensures the update completes without power interruptions. So charging and Wi-Fi are the key requirements to ensure smooth automatic updates during off hours. A user is troubleshooting a hardware issue and wants to print their full system report to bring to a service technician. What should they do? Select one answer. A. Open system information and choose File, Print. B. Copy system folders and print the contents. C. Take photos of each settings screen. D. Email the report to themselves. Correct answer, A. Open system information and choose File, Print. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. When a user needs a full and structured overview of their system for technical support, the most reliable method is to open the System Information utility and use the File, Print option. This generates a comprehensive formatted report that includes all system specifications, making it ideal for technicians. On the other hand, copying system folders and printing them is not practical. It's inefficient, lacks clarity, and doesn't maintain the structured format needed for troubleshooting. Similarly, taking photos of settings screens may miss crucial information and result in a disorganized set of images, which can confuse rather than help. Lastly, emailing the report only makes sense after it's been generated or printed. It doesn't directly fulfill the goal of creating a physical report. So the best approach is to use the built-in tool designed for this exact task, System Information with the print command. A student tries to access files in the Downloads folder using a newly installed app on macOS. They are prompted to allow access. Why does this happen? Select one answer. A. The app is from a third-party store. B. macOS includes protections that require explicit permission for access to user data. C. The Downloads folder is encrypted. D. The app is using too much storage. Correct answer, B. macOS includes protections that require explicit permission for access to user data. Now, let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. On macOS, Apple has built in a privacy and security framework that restricts app access to certain sensitive locations, like the Downloads folder. This means that when a newly installed app attempts to read from or write to this location, macOS will prompt the user for permission, regardless of where the app came from. To clarify, the app being from a third-party store is not the reason for the prompt. macOS applies this rule even to apps from the App Store. Additionally, the Downloads folder is not encrypted by default, so encryption is not what triggers the alert. Lastly, using too much storage is unrelated to file access. Storage concerns do not influence permission dialogues. In short, this behavior is a security measure built into macOS to protect user data, and it applies universally to all apps unless explicit permission is granted. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Users can change the name of their iPad from within the About section of the Settings app. Answer: true, admins can manage access to Apple ID sign-in using Jamf Pro. Answer: true, Bluetooth settings are located in the VPN and device management section. Answer: false, software updates must always be installed manually from the App Store. Answer: false. Now let's take a moment to explain each answer. To begin with, users can indeed change the name of their iPad by going to Settings, then General, and selecting About. There, they'll find an editable name field, making this statement true. Next, it's also true that admins can manage access to Apple ID sign-in using Jamf Pro. This is especially useful in organizational settings where restricting personal Apple ID use is necessary for managing security and compliance. On the other hand, Bluetooth settings are not found under VPN and device management. They are located directly under the main settings or under the Apple ID section depending on the configuration, so the statement is false. Finally, software updates do not always have to be installed manually from the App Store. As long as conditions like being connected to Wi-Fi, charging, and having the screen locked are met, updates can install automatically, making that last statement false as well. An organization wants to enforce a secure environment across all staff iPads. As part of their policy, they need to prevent staff from using biometric unlock features. What should the IT admin configure in Jamf Pro? Select one answer. A. Allow users to toggle Face ID manually. B. Require passcodes but ignore biometric settings. C. Prevent the use of Touch ID and Face ID. D. Use VPN to block biometric settings. Correct answer? C. Prevent the use of Touch ID and Face ID. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. When enforcing a secure environment, especially on organizational devices, it's important that users are not allowed to bypass or weaken the security policy. Jamf Pro provides an option to explicitly disable biometric authentication like Touch ID and Face ID. This ensures that only the approved authentication method, such as a passcode, is used, helping maintain compliance and protecting sensitive data. Allowing users to toggle Face ID manually would give them the power to override restrictions, which contradicts the goal of strict policy enforcement. Similarly, requiring passcodes but ignoring biometric settings means users could still unlock their devices using biometrics, creating a loophole in the policy. Lastly, using a VPN does not affect biometric settings at all. VPNs are meant for secure network access, not device authentication. Therefore, disabling Touch ID and Face ID through Jamf Pro is the correct and most effective way to enforce this security policy. Michael uses the Home app to simplify his daily tasks. He wants the door to lock automatically when he leaves. What feature should he explore in the iPhone? Select one answer. A. Battery health. B. Home app automations. C. FaceTime groups. D. Camera settings. Correct answer, B. Home app automations. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. The Home app on iPhone supports smart home automation, including the ability to lock doors, turn off lights, or adjust thermostats based on triggers like time of day or location. By setting up Home app automations, Michael can ensure his door locks automatically when he leaves the house, offering both convenience and security. In contrast, Battery Health provides information about battery performance but has no role in automating actions. FaceTime groups are designed for group video and audio calls, not for managing smart devices. Camera settings are related to photo and video configurations, which are completely unrelated to task automation. So, to achieve his goal, Michael should explore automations within the Home app. An administrator is preparing iPads for a group of students using the Classroom app. They want each student to see their name and photo on the login screen. What must be enabled in Jamf Pro to make this happen? Select one answer. A. Enable iCloud Sync. B. Enable user images. C. Activate Siri for students. D. Enable Bluetooth pairing. Correct answer B. Enable user images. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. In a shared iPad environment, especially when using the Classroom app, it's important for students to easily identify their assigned profile. By enabling user images in Jamf Pro, administrators ensure that each student's photo appears on the login screen alongside their name, making it simple and intuitive for them to log in. Meanwhile, enabling iCloud Sync does not affect whether photos appear on login screens. It's more about syncing documents and app data. Activating Siri for students relates to voice interaction, not visual identity. Lastly, enabling Bluetooth pairing is used for device connectivity, not classroom user interface elements. So to display student names and photos on shared devices, the setting that must be enabled is user images. What distinguishes advanced data protection from standard data protection in iCloud? Select one answer. A. Advanced data protection lets Apple manage the user's encryption keys. B, it stores encryption keys on an external device. C, it increases the number of categories protected with end-to-end encryption. D, it disables iCloud backup. Correct answer, C. It increases the number of categories protected with end-to-end encryption. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. Advanced data protection enhances iCloud security by significantly increasing the number of data categories that receive end-to-end encryption. Specifically, it raises the total from 14 to 23, ensuring that more of the user's sensitive data is protected in a way that even Apple cannot access. On the other hand, suggesting that Apple manages the encryption keys under this feature is incorrect because with advanced data protection, only the user holds the keys. Apple does not retain access. Likewise, the encryption keys are not stored on an external device. They remain on trusted Apple devices. Finally, iCloud backup is not disabled by this feature. Instead, it remains available and becomes more secure as part of the expanded encryption coverage. Therefore, the defining difference lies in the increased scope of end-to-end encryption offered by advanced data protection. Which section of System Report provides network-related information? Select one answer. A, Hardware Overview, B, Network, C, Startup Disk, D, Display Settings. Correct answer, B, Network. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. The Network section of the System Report is specifically designed to present information related to networking. This includes IP addresses, active network interfaces, service configurations, and connection details. Everything you'd need for diagnosing or reviewing network activity on a Mac. In comparison, the hardware overview is more focused on physical device specifications like the processor and memory, and does not contain network details. The Startup Disk section is used to manage boot volumes and their order, not network settings. Lastly, display settings are dedicated to screen resolution and monitor configuration, completely unrelated to networking. So if you're looking for any kind of connectivity data, the correct place to check is the Network section in the System Report. What type of content is stored in the system volume? Select one answer. A, Photos and contacts. B, App cache and cookies. C, Operating system files. D, Downloaded documents. Correct answer, C. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. The system volume on a Mac is a dedicated read-only section of the drive where Apple stores the core operating system files. This separation ensures that the system files remain secure and unmodified by users or apps, which is crucial for stability and integrity. In contrast, photos and contacts are saved in the data volume, which is writable and used for personal files. Similarly, app cache and cookies belong to app-specific containers that also live in the data volume, not the system partition. Finally, downloaded documents are typically stored in user folders or synced through iCloud and are completely separate from the system volume. So to summarize, only the essential macOS operating system components are stored in the system volume. What is the primary goal of app sandboxing on Apple platforms? Select one answer. A, to boost app speed. B, to isolate app data and protect user privacy. C, to reduce download sizes. D, to allow more apps to run in the background. Correct answer, B, to isolate app data and protect user privacy. Now let's take a moment to explain why the correct answer. App sandboxing is a critical security measure used on Apple platforms to limit what apps can access. Each app is confined to its own isolated environment, which prevents it from reading or writing data outside its designated space unless explicitly granted permission. This structure protects user data and prevents malicious apps from tampering with system files or other apps' content. On the other hand, sandboxing is not designed to boost app speed. Performance depends on how the app is developed and the hardware it runs on. It also doesn't reduce download sizes, since that relates to how much data is packaged with the app, not its access permissions. And allowing more apps to run in the background is managed by the operating system's multitasking policies, not sandbox restrictions. So the main purpose of sandboxing is to safeguard personal and system data through app isolation. Which macOS feature allows users to uninstall an app by clicking and holding its icon until it jiggles? Select one answer. A, Finder. B, System Preferences. C, Launchpad. D, App Library. Correct answer, C. Launchpad. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. In macOS, Launchpad provides a simplified visual layout of installed apps, much like the home screen on an iPad or iPhone. To uninstall an app, a user simply clicks and holds the icon until it starts to jiggle, revealing a small X button on deletable apps. Clicking that X immediately removes the app from the system. By comparison, Finder allows users to uninstall apps, but only by manually dragging them to the trash, which lacks the intuitive jiggling behavior described in the question. System Preferences, on the other hand, is used to adjust system settings and has nothing to do with app removal. Lastly, the app library is exclusive to iOS and iPadOS, not macOS, so it's not a valid option here. Therefore, the Launchpad is the macOS feature that allows app uninstallation through this jiggle and click method. While helping a user customize their Mac, you are asked to assist with changing the desktop wallpaper. Where should you direct them in system settings? Select one answer. A. General, Display. B. Personalization, Themes. C. Wallpaper section. D. Login password section. Correct answer, C. Wallpaper section. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. The wallpaper section in system settings is specifically designed for managing desktop visuals. From here, users can browse Apple's built-in wallpapers, choose their own images, or even set dynamic wallpapers that change with the time of day. In contrast, the general display section is meant for technical screen adjustments like resolution and refresh rate, not for visuals like wallpapers. Personalization themes may sound correct, but macOS does not have such a section. It's more of a Windows concept. Lastly, the login password section is strictly for managing user credentials and has nothing to do with customizing the desktop. So if someone wants to update their desktop background, the most direct path is through the wallpaper section. A company is using Jamf Premium Cloud. They want to verify which devices have declarative device management enabled. What should the admin do? Select one answer. A. Check the profile name in the Apple Business Manager portal. B. Look in the General tab of each device's inventory in Jamf Pro. C. Check the system log of each device. D. Use Apple Configurator 2 to view device details. Correct answer, B. Look in the General tab of each device's inventory in Jamf Pro. Now, let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. The General tab in each device's inventory in Jamf Pro is where administrators can confirm if declarative device management is enabled. This status is clearly displayed, making it the most direct and efficient method for verifying compliance. By contrast, checking the profile name in Apple Business Manager won't help, as that portal does not provide Jamf-specific inventory data. Similarly, reviewing system logs on individual devices is both time-consuming and unnecessary when Jamf Pro already centralizes that information. Lastly, Apple Configurator 2 is primarily used for enrolling or preparing devices and does not show declarative management status. So, to efficiently confirm declarative management, the correct and recommended path is through Jamf Pro's General Inventory tab. A Jamf Pro server integrated with LDAP suddenly stops resolving group membership. The LDAP proxy is installed but not functioning properly. What port might be blocked between Jamf Pro and the LDAP proxy? Select one answer. A. 8389 or 8636, B. 11211, C. 540, D. 135. Correct answer A. 8389 or 8636. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. Ports 8389 and 88636 are specifically used by Jamf Pro to communicate with the Jamf Infrastructure Manager LDAP proxy. Port 8389 is for LDAP, while 86636 is for the secure version, LDAPs. If either of these ports is blocked, Jamf Pro will fail to connect with the proxy, leading to issues like unresolved group membership. By contrast, port 11211 is related to memcached and has nothing to do with LDAP communication. Port 514 is used for sending syslog messages, which are for logging, not directory services. Port 135 is tied to DCOM, often used in Microsoft environments for services like remote procedure calls, and is unrelated to Jamf's LDAP integration. So, when troubleshooting LDAP connectivity in Jamf, checking if ports 8389 or 8636 are open is the right place to start. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Jamf Pro uses APNs to notify devices that a profile is available. Answer: true. A device must be offline to receive commands via APNs. Answer false. Declarative device management improves speed and stability of configuration delivery. Answer true. Jamf Pro needs to be installed locally to send MDM commands. Answer false. Now let's take a moment to explain each answer. To begin, it's true that Jamf Pro uses Apple Push Notification Service, or APNs, to alert devices when a profile or command is ready. The device then contacts Jamf Pro to retrieve the configuration. However, it's false that a device must be offline to receive APNs. In reality, the device must be online and connected to the internet to receive these notifications in real time. Next, declarative device management is indeed a true improvement. It allows for faster and more reliable delivery of settings by enabling devices to take action without needing a round trip to the server for each change. Lastly, the idea that Jamf Pro must be installed locally is false. Jamf Pro can be cloud-hosted or locally deployed, and both methods support sending MDM commands to managed devices. So in summary, APNs and declarative management work together to streamline device communication, and Jamf Pro's flexibility ensures broad deployment options. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. APNs is required for both App Store notifications and MDM commands. Answer: true. Lost mode can be activated even if a device is offline. Answer: false. Apple Business Manager can automatically associate newly purchased devices with an organization. Answer: true. Devices must be turned off to receive lost mode activation. Answer: false. Now let's take a moment to explain each answer. To begin with, it is true that Apple Push Notification Service, or APNs, acts as the communication bridge for both App Store notifications and MDM commands. Without APNs, devices wouldn't receive real-time instructions or updates from platforms like Jamf Pro. However, it's false that lost mode can be activated while a device is offline. If the device isn't connected to a network, it won't receive the command until it comes back online. On the other hand, it's true that Apple Business Manager can automatically assign new devices to an organization when they're purchased from Apple or authorized resellers. This streamlines setup and enrollment into MDM. Finally, it is false that devices need to be turned off for lost mode to activate. In fact, they must be powered on and connected to a network to process that command. So overall, network connectivity and APNs play a key role in managing and securing Apple devices remotely. An admin creates a policy to install an app, but notices some users report failed installations. Investigation reveals the devices are running macOS 13.6, while the app requires macOS 14. What did the admin likely forget to do? Select one answer. A. Add a post-install script. B. Configure a restart payload. C. Add the app to self-service. D. Set an OS requirement in the Package Limitations tab. Correct answer, D. Set an OS requirement in the Package Limitations tab. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. When deploying apps through Jamf Pro, it's essential to ensure that the target devices meet all compatibility requirements. In this case, since the app only supports macOS 14, the admin should have set a version restriction under the Package Limitations tab. This ensures the installation policy only targets devices that meet or exceed the required macOS version. Adding a post-install script would not help here because such scripts are used for custom tasks after installation, not for checking version compatibility. Configuring a restart payload is also irrelevant, since rebooting doesn't solve OS mismatches. Lastly, placing the app in self-service only affects visibility to users, not whether the installation itself will succeed. So to avoid deployment errors tied to OS compatibility, setting the correct OS requirement in the Limitations tab is the key step. A technician is trying to configure system-wide web browser settings using a property list. Which of the following storage locations would be most appropriate? Select one answer. A. Library Preferences. B. Applications webbrowser.app/contents. C. Library Preferences. D. /system/preferences. Correct answer. C. Library/preferences. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. When configuring system-wide preferences on macOS, settings must be stored in a location that affects all users. The /library preferences directory serves this exact purpose. It is part of the root library, and any configuration stored here applies across user accounts on the system. In contrast, library/preferences refers to a user's personal library folder, which means any settings placed there will only apply to that individual user, not system-wide. Similarly, /sys/preferences is not even a valid macOS directory for configuration data. Lastly, /applications/webbrowser.app/contents is part of the app's bundle and should not be used to store or override preference files. So for configurations intended to apply to all users, the appropriate and effective path is /library/preferences. A school IT administrator is setting up a third-party MDM server in Apple School Manager. They've named the server Library Admin, uploaded the required public key certificate file, and downloaded the server token. After assigning devices to this MDM, they find that users can still unassign devices. They want to prevent this. What step likely needs to be revisited? Select one answer. A. Assign the server a fully qualified domain name. B. Ensure the server token is encrypted with the MDM vendor's private key C. Modify the server settings to disable the ability to release devices. D. Use a different user role to download the token. Correct answer C. Modify the server settings to disable the ability to release devices. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. When linking an MDM server to Apple School Manager, there's an option that controls whether users can release or unassign devices. If this setting is not disabled, users assigned to the MDM can still remove devices, which undermines the organization's control. The admin must revisit the server settings and explicitly disable the release capability. Assigning a fully qualified domain name may help with server identification, but it does not impact the ability to release devices. Likewise, the encryption of the server token uses Apple's certificate system and not a vendor's private key, so option B is not relevant here. As for user roles, while they determine access levels, they do not govern the device release permission tied to the server token. Therefore, the correct step to revisit is modifying the server settings to disable the ability to release devices. An administrator is setting up Jamf Pro to enroll macOS devices using user-initiated enrollment. They want to manage local administrator passwords securely and ensure future rotation through policy. Which two actions must they take to ensure this setup is correct and secure? Select two answers. A. Configure a managed local administrator account during user-initiated enrollment. B. Ensure the same account name is used in both pre-stage and user-initiated enrollment. C. Enable lapse and use a policy to rotate passwords. D. Skip creating the management account and use the local user's credentials. Correct answers. A. Configure a managed local administrator account during user-initiated enrollment. C. Enable lapse and use a policy to rotate passwords. Now let's take a moment to explain why these are the correct answers. First, configuring a managed local administrator account during user-initiated enrollment is essential. This account provides administrative access needed for system-level management and is a prerequisite for enabling features like lapse, which manages passwords. Next, enabling lapse and setting a policy to rotate passwords ensures that local administrator credentials are not static. Lapse allows secure and automated rotation of these passwords, which is a best practice for maintaining security across enrolled devices. However, using the same account name in both pre-stage and user-initiated enrollment can cause duplication errors and account conflicts, so that should be avoided. Likewise, skipping the creation of a management account prevents Jamf from enforcing password policies or carrying out privileged tasks, which defeats the purpose of secure administration. So the secure and correct approach is to configure the admin account during enrollment and pair that with lapse for password rotation. An IT admin at a school wants to ensure that newly purchased iPads are enrolled into MDM automatically without having to configure them manually. The school bought the devices from an Apple authorized reseller. However, they are unsure what steps to take next. What should the admin do to ensure successful automated device enrollment? Select two answers. A. Upload the device details into Apple School Manager manually. B. Add the reseller's ID and provide them with the organization ID. C. Enroll the school in Apple Configurator only. D. Ensure the devices are supervised and running iPadOS. Correct answers. B. Add the reseller's ID and provide them with the organization ID. D. Ensure the devices are supervised and running iPadOS. Now let's take a moment to explain why these are the correct answers. To enable automated device enrollment through Apple School Manager, the first step is to connect your Apple authorized reseller to your account. You do this by providing the reseller's ID and your organization ID. Once this link is established, all future device purchases from that reseller will automatically appear in your Apple School Manager portal for assignment. In addition, for automated device enrollment to work, the devices must be supervised and running a supported operating system like iPadOS. Supervision is a requirement that allows the organization full management control and is necessary for seamless MDM configuration. By contrast, uploading device details manually into Apple School Manager isn't possible for purchased devices. That method is reserved for Apple Configurator, which is typically used for older or manually devices. Also, enrolling in Apple Configurator only doesn't enable automated deployment through the reseller channel. So for this scenario, the admin should link the reseller and ensure the devices meet supervision and OS requirements. During enrollment, the admin notices the user's full name isn't populating on the Mac, even though SSO is enabled. What is a likely reason? Select one answer. A, the full name attribute is missing in the IDP. B, user skipped Setup Assistant. C, Jamf Connect is not enabled. D, user removed the MDM profile. Correct answer A, the full name attribute is missing in the IDP. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. When using single sign-on during enrollment, Jamf Pro relies on the identity provider, or IDP, to supply user attributes such as full name. Jamf Pro cannot autofill it on the device. This is why the user's full name would be missing, even though SSO. Skipping Setup Assistant wouldn't block attribute population, as that's part of the user experience flow, but not tied to attribute delivery. Similarly, Jamf Connect can enhance identity workflows, but it's not required for pulling the full name attribute from the IDP. Lastly, removing the MDM profile happens after enrollment and wouldn't impact the full name display during the initial setup. So ultimately, the issue lies with the IDP not delivering the full name attribute during enrollment. An IT manager wants to assign a batch of MacBook Pros, all with 1 terabyte storage, to a specific MDM server dedicated to the graphics department. What is the most efficient method to achieve this in Apple School Manager? Select one answer. A, use the order number to assign devices. B, filter devices by storage size and assign them. C, manually select each device by serial number. D, assign devices based on their purchase date. Correct answer, B, filter devices by storage size and assign them to Manner. Now let's take a moment to explain why this is the correct answer. Apple School Manager allows admins to filter devices using attributes such as storage capacity, model, and assignment status. In this case, filtering by storage size lets the manager quickly isolate all 1 terabyte MacBook Pros and assign them to the graphics department's designated MDM server in one efficient step. Although using the order number might seem convenient, it could include devices that aren't meant for this department, making it less precise. Manually selecting devices by serial number is extremely tedious and inefficient, especially in large deployments. Assigning devices based on their purchase date is not a filtering option. Apple School Manager supports for bulk assignments. So the most accurate and time-saving approach is to filter by storage size and assign accordingly. What are the valid authentication methods supported during Jamf Pro device enrollment via the enrollment URL? Select 3 answers. A, LDAP, B, Google Workspace, C, Single Sign-On, SSO, D, Cloud Identity Provider. Correct answers. A, LDAP, C, Single Sign-On, SSO, D, Cloud Identity Provider. Now let's take a moment to explain why these are the correct answers. During user-initiated enrollment in Jamf Pro, 3 supported authentication methods are LDAP, SSO, and Cloud Identity Providers. LDAP, or Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, enables Jamf to authenticate users directly against an internal directory service. This is particularly useful for organizations with established on-premises directories. Meanwhile, Single Sign-On provides a more seamless experience by allowing users to authenticate through an identity provider using federated credentials. This includes services like Microsoft Entra ID or Okta, which can be integrated as cloud identity providers. These platforms allow central authentication management while still enabling Jamf to collect the necessary user data. On the other hand, Google Workspace, while it can be connected through SSO integration, is not listed as a standalone authentication method within the Jamf Pro enrollment workflow. It requires additional setup and is not natively recognized in the same way as LDAP or direct SSO methods. So in summary, Jamf Pro supports LDAP, single sign-on, and cloud identity providers for secure and flexible user authentication during enrollment. What happens when the unmanaged device command is sent to a mobile device? Select two answers. A, the MDM profile is removed. B, the device is erased immediately. C, the device can no longer submit inventory updates. D, configuration profiles from Jamf Pro are removed. E, self-service is uninstalled. Correct answers. A, the MDM profile is removed. D, configuration profiles from Jamf Pro are removed. Now let's take a moment to explain why these are the correct answers. When Jamf Pro sends an unmanaged device command to a mobile device, the most immediate action is the removal of the MDM profile. This profile is what enables remote management, so once it's removed, Jamf Pro can no longer enforce policies or communicate with the device. Alongside this, any configuration profiles that were pushed to the device via MDM are also removed. These may include Wi-Fi settings, restrictions, or email configurations that were applied for organizational use. In contrast, the device is not erased. Unmanaging is not a wipe command, it simply stops management. Although the device might eventually stop submitting updates, that doesn't happen immediately and isn't the primary outcome of this command. As for self-service, it's only removed if it was set to be uninstalled during the unmanaged process, so it's not a guaranteed effect. Therefore, the best answers are the removal of the MDM profile and the associated configuration profiles. What does Jamf Pro use to verify package authenticity during deployment? Select one answer. A, index file. B, distribution trigger. C, checksum. D, restart payload. Correct answer C, checksum. Correct choice. Jamf Pro uses a checksum to ensure that the package being deployed has not been altered or tampered with. The checksum acts as a digital fingerprint. Jamf calculates a value based on the contents of the package and compares it to the expected value. If they match, the package is considered authentic and safe to deploy. On the other hand, the index file is only relevant when uninstalling a package and does not contribute to validating its authenticity. The distribution trigger simply controls when a policy is executed, such as at login or recurring check-in, but it doesn't perform any integrity verification. Finally, the restart payload only affects whether or not a device reboots after deployment and plays no role in confirming package legitimacy. So in summary, checksums are the mechanism Jamf Pro relies on for authenticating package integrity during deployment. What must be configured to create a managed local administrator account during enrollment? Select one answer. A, self-service policies. B, user-initiated enrollment settings. C, patch policy. D, software update policy. Correct answer. B, user-initiated enrollment settings. Let's now explain why this is the correct option. When a managed local administrator account is needed during the device enrollment process, it must be defined within the user-initiated enrollment settings. This section allows admins to specify the username, password type, and privileges for the account that will be created as part of the enrollment workflow. Conversely, self-service policies are related to app and resource deployment, not account creation. Patch policies manage software versions, ensuring apps are up to date, but they don't handle user accounts. Lastly, software update policies are strictly for pushing OS updates and have nothing to do with provisioning users. So ultimately, the only place where Jamf Pro can create a managed admin account during enrollment is within the user-initiated enrollment settings. What is the main role of the pre-flight check-in, the mute? Select one answer. A, delete invalid devices. B, encrypt the CSV file. C, preview the updates before submission. D, force device re-enrollment. Correct answer, C, preview the updates. Let's now through the explanation. The MUT, or Mass Update tool, includes a pre-flight check feature that allows administrators to preview exactly what changes will occur before the tool applies them. This is extremely useful in catching errors or misconfigurations before they affect your devices, making it a critical part of safe bulk management. In contrast, deleting invalid devices is not part of the pre-flight process. The tool does not delete devices at all. Similarly, encryption of the CSV file is not handled by the pre-flight check. That's a separate concern for data security. And finally, the mute doesn't handle enrollment actions like forcing device re-enrollment. It only updates existing attributes in Jamf Pro. So again, the main role of the pre-flight check is to preview the updates before submission. Your company recently switched to cloud-based distribution for its Apple devices. As an admin, you need to upload a new security package directly to Jamf Pro without copying it manually to a file share. What should be true for this to work successfully? Select one answer. A. The package must be a DMG and uploaded through a script. B. A cloud distribution point must be configured as the principal distribution point. C. The package must first be indexed before upload. D. Only PKG files are allowed for cloud distribution. Correct answer. B. A cloud distribution point must be configured as the principal distribution point. Let's go ahead and explain why this is the correct answer. When you're uploading a package directly to Jamf Pro, the system needs to know where to store and serve that package. For this process to succeed without using a traditional file share, your Jamf Pro environment must have a cloud distribution point configured and set as the principal distribution point. This setting ensures that Jamf Pro accepts direct uploads and handles them through the cloud infrastructure. Now looking at the incorrect options. Option A suggests the file must be a DMG and uploaded via a script, but in reality, Jamf Pro supports multiple formats and provides a direct upload interface, making scripting unnecessary. Option C talks about indexing before upload, which is only relevant for uninstall operations, not for uploading new packages. And D implies only PKG files are allowed, but Jamf Pro also supports DMG and MPKG formats for cloud-based distribution. So the key requirement here is configuring the cloud distribution point as the primary method for package delivery. Which macOS version is required for agent-based enrollment with a quick add package to MDM-enable users? Select one answer. A. macOS 11 or later. B. macOS 14.3 only. C. macOS 10.15.7 or earlier. D. macOS for 4 correct answers. C. macOS 10.7 or earlier. Let's now take a moment to explain why this is correct. Quick add-based enrollment is an older method that relies on macOS agent functionality, which Apple deprecated in later versions. Therefore, Quick Add is only supported on macOS 10.15.7 or earlier. Starting from macOS 11, Apple transitioned to modern MDM frameworks that no longer support this type of agent-based enrollment. As for the incorrect options, macOS 11 or later does not support Quick Add enrollment at all. macOS 14.3 only is too specific and does not reflect the cutoff required for this method. macOS 10.13.4 or later includes versions beyond 10.15.7, which again excludes support for Quick Add. So if you're managing legacy systems and relying on Quick Add packages for MDM user enablement, it's essential to use macOS 10.15.7 or earlier. When disabling an API client, what happens to previously generated access tokens? Select one answer. A. They are revoked immediately. B. They remain valid until they expire. C. They are refreshed with new privileges. D. They require manual revocation by administrator. Correct answer B. They remain valid until they expire. Let's now through when you disable an API client in Jamf Pro, this action blocks the creation of new access tokens. However, it does not automatically revoke any tokens that were already issued. Instead, those existing tokens continue to function and remain valid until their individual expiration times are reached. Now looking at the incorrect choices. Saying they are revoked immediately is inaccurate because disabling the client does not trigger automatic revocation. The option about tokens being refreshed with new privileges is also wrong since token refresh does not happen automatically upon disabling. Lastly, while manual revocation may seem logical, Jamf Pro does not allow direct revocation of active tokens one by one via the interface. So in summary, the correct behavior is that previously generated tokens stay active until they naturally expire, even after the API client is disabled. Which component manages recurring check-ins from Macs to the Jamf Pro server? Select one answer. A. com.jamfsoftware.task.onelist. B. jamfdaemon.app. C. managementaction.app. D. jamfhelper.app. Correct answer at com.jamfsoftware.task.1.plist. Let's now go over the explanation together. The component responsible for managing recurring check-ins in Jamf Pro is the launch daemon named com.jamfsoftware.task.1.plist. This file ensures that enrolled Macs periodically reach out to the Jamf Pro server, which is essential for keeping device inventory current and applying policies or configuration profiles. Meanwhile, Jamf daemon.app does run in the background, but it handles broader Jamf agent activities, not specifically scheduled check-ins. Management action.app focuses on delivering notifications to the user, not initiating communication with the server. And Jamf helper.app is designed for showing user messages like alerts or instructions, but plays no role in the check-in process. So in short, the com.jamfsoftware.task1plist file is what drives the regular heartbeat between a Mac and the Jamf Pro server. Why is it important for admins to understand iOS and iPadOS settings options? Select one answer. A, so they can change user preferences for them. B, to prevent users from accessing the settings app entirely. C, to create policies and enforce security using tools like Jamf Pro. D, so they can update devices to the latest OS manually. Correct answer C, to create policies and enforce security using tools Jamf. Let's walk through the reasoning behind this. Understanding the settings options in iOS and iPadOS is key for administrators because it empowers them to create effective policies, apply restrictions, and enforce security compliance through tools like Jamf Pro. With this knowledge, admins can confidently configure profiles to manage things like Wi-Fi access, passcode requirements, or app restrictions without needing to manually handle each device. Although some might think admins directly change user preferences, that's typically not the case. Preferences are governed through configuration profiles. Furthermore, restricting access to the entire settings app is generally too limiting and not common practice. And while staying up to date with OS versions is important, knowing the settings options extends well beyond just managing updates. Ultimately, understanding these settings ensures centralized, secure, and scalable management across all managed Apple devices. Which of the following setup assistant screens can be hidden during enrollment using Prestage? Select two answers. A, Siri setup. B, activation lock. C, location services. D, Wi-Fi configurations. A, C, location services. Let's take a moment to explain these correct choices. During automated device enrollment using Prestage and Jamf Pro, administrators have the ability to streamline the setup assistant experience by skipping certain screens. Siri setup and location services are two of the configurable screens that can be hidden, which helps speed up the initial device configuration and reduce user interaction. By contrast, activation lock is not part of setup assistant. It is a separate security feature meant to deter theft, and its status can be controlled from Prestage. Meanwhile, Wi-Fi configuration must occur before Setup Assistant even starts, so it also cannot be skipped or hidden via Prestage. In summary, hiding Siri setup and location services in Prestage simplifies deployment while maintaining control over key setup elements. Which two identity providers are supported for federated login with Apple School Manager and Apple Business Manager? Select two answers. A, LinkedIn. B, Amazon Cognito. C, Google Workspace. D, Microsoft Entra ID. Correct answers. C, Google Workspace. D, Microsoft Entra ID. Take a moment to explain these answers. Google Workspace is supported by Apple for federated login, which allows users to sign into managed Apple IDs using their Google credentials. This simplifies the login process in educational environments where schools already rely heavily on Google accounts. Similarly, Microsoft Entra ID, formerly known as Azure Active Directory, is also supported. It enables users to authenticate into Apple School Manager or Apple Business Manager using their Microsoft credentials, commonly used in enterprise or hybrid school environments. On the other hand, LinkedIn is a professional networking platform and not designed for federated identity management in this context. Likewise, Amazon Cognito, while useful for app-based identity solutions, is not a supported identity provider for Apple's federated login framework. So, when planning Apple deployments that involve federated authentication, Google Workspace and Microsoft Entra ID are your go-to options. Which setting allows you to customize how often a user is notified of an available app update? Select one answer. A. Notification frequency. B. Force quit grace period. C. Install supporting configuration profiles. D. Log event notifications. Correct answer, notification frequency. Let's now take a moment to explain. Notification frequency directly controls how often the user sees update reminders when an app update is available. This setting is essential for managing user experience, especially in environments where timely updates are necessary, but constant alerts could become disruptive. In contrast, the force quit grace period determines how much time users have before an app is quit during updates, which is unrelated to the timing of update notifications. Likewise, installing supporting configuration profiles is used for disabling built-in auto updates, but does not affect reminder frequency. Lastly, log event notifications are intended for Jamf Pro admin alerts and system events, not user-facing prompts. So if your goal is to control how often users are reminded about available app updates, notification frequency is the setting you need. You plan to send a remote command to restart 900 Macs at once. Which best practice should you follow when sending mass actions? Select one answer. A. Send the command to all devices at once without batching. B. Batch the commands into groups of fewer than 1,000 devices. C. Only send commands to devices running the latest OS version. D. Delete devices before sending remote commands. Correct answer, B. Batches of fewer than 1,000. Let's now explain why this is the best practice. When managing a large fleet of devices in Jamf Pro, sending commands to all of them at once can strain the system and lead to delays or failures. Jamf specifically recommends batching remote commands in groups of fewer than 1,000 devices. This helps ensure reliable delivery and avoids overloading the server or network. By contrast, sending to all devices at once without batching might seem faster, but it increases the risk of timeout errors or inconsistent execution. Sending only to devices running the latest OS version ignores the reality of mixed environments and doesn't address system strain. Likewise, deleting devices before sending commands is unnecessary and counterproductive, especially since the goal is to manage, not remove, these devices. So to maintain performance and reliability, always batch your mass actions into manageable groups. Your team is preparing to roll out an update for a critical third-party application across your organization. You've configured the software title and uploaded the package. What must be done before creating a patch policy to distribute the update? Select one answer. A. Add a software update script to self-service. B. Associate the uploaded package with the target software title version. C. Assign a smart group to the update policy. D. Wait for a software title notification from Jamf Pro. Correct answer, B. Associate the uploaded package with the target software version. Now let's walk through the reasoning. Before a patch policy can be created in Jamf Pro, it's essential that the uploaded package is mapped to a specific software title version. This link ensures Jamf knows which version the patch policy is targeting and can properly distribute the update across the scoped devices. Although adding a software update script to self-service might seem helpful, patch policies don't require manual scripting. They automate installations based on version matching. Similarly, assigning a smart group is useful for targeting devices later, but it is not a prerequisite for defining the patch itself. Lastly, while Jamf Pro notifications can keep admins informed about new updates, they are not mandatory before proceeding with a patch deployment. So, the critical first step is to associate the uploaded package with the correct software title version. A Jamf Pro user is running a search, but only partial results are appearing, even though the term is correct. What could be the reason? Select one answer. A. They used starts with instead of contains. B. Their account lacks full permissions. C. They are searching from the reports page. D. They forgot to refresh the browser. Correct answer. A. They used starts with instead of contains. Let's explain how this works. When a user selects the starts with option in Jamf Pro, the system will only return results that begin with the entered search term. So for example, if the user searches for Pro using starts with, it will not return results like Mac Pro or System Profile, since those terms don't begin with Pro. In contrast, using contains allows the search to match the term regardless of its position in the string, producing more comprehensive results. The other choices are less relevant. Even though limited permissions can restrict access, they don't impact search matching logic. Searching from the reports page does not affect how search terms are interpreted, and refreshing the browser won't influence how results are filtered based on search criteria. So partial results are likely due to using starts with instead of contains. A technician searches for an application and wants to identify which computers have it installed. What is the correct next step after the search results appear? Select one answer. A. Click Expand next to the app. B. Open the Computers tab again. C. Open Reports and Research. D. Use Export to find associated devices. Correct answer. A. Click Expand next. Let's walk through the reasoning behind this. Technician runs a search for a specific application in Jamf Pro. They're presented with the search results showing the app name. To find out which computers have this app installed, the next step is to click the Expand option next to the app in the results. This action will display the list of devices that have the selected application installed, making it the most direct and efficient step. Reopening the Computers tab is unnecessary because the relevant results are already displayed. Similarly, opening reports and searching again won't provide a direct link to the devices in question. Lastly, exporting data only gives you raw information and won't help in immediately identifying associated devices. So the right move is to click Expand next to the app. An admin is trying to manually force an update on an app but cannot see the Force Update button. Why is this happening? Select one answer. A. The app is already installed. B. The device is unsupervised. C. No update is available in Jamf Pro. D. The user has denied update permissions. Correct answer. C. No update is available in Jamf Pro. Now explain the reasoning. The Force Update button in Jamf Pro only becomes available when an update has actually been detected for the application in question. If no update is listed within Jamf Pro, there's no version to push, and therefore the button doesn't appear. The fact that the app is already installed doesn't affect whether an update can be forced. Likewise, whether the device is supervised or not doesn't impact the visibility of this button. And since managed app updates are handled silently, user permissions to allow or deny updates are irrelevant in this case. So the absence of a detected update in Jamf Pro is the key reason the Force Update option is not visible. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Device groups in Jamf Pro are used to organize computers and mobile devices. True, automatic update membership based on criteria. False, smart groups require manual updates to maintain membership. False smart groups can automatically include devices based on OS version or passcode status. True. Now let's explain these answers. To begin with, it's true that device groups in Jamf Pro are used to organize computers and mobile devices. This helps streamline tasks like applying configuration profiles and scoping policies. Next, it's false that static groups automatically update based on criteria. Static groups require administrators to manually add or remove devices. The idea that smart groups require manual updates is also false. Smart groups evaluate membership dynamically based on conditions like OS version or enrollment status. Finally, it's true that smart groups can include devices automatically based on values like OS version or passcode status. This capability allows admins to create real-time, responsive management policies. An iPad user enables automatic updates but is unsure when the updates will occur. Under which conditions will iOS or iPadOS updates automatically install overnight? Select two answers. A. Device must be charging. B. Device must be in airplane mode. C. Device must be connected to Wi-Fi. D. Device must be turned off. Correct answer. A. Device must be charging. C. Device must be connected to Wi-Fi. Now, two conditions are required. First, the device must be charging. Automatic updates are scheduled to happen when the device is idle and plugged in, typically overnight. This ensures there's enough power for the update process to complete without interruptions. Next, the device must also be connected to Wi-Fi. Updates cannot download and install over cellular data due to file size and policy restrictions. Wi-Fi ensures a stable and fast connection during the update process. In contrast, enabling airplane mode would disconnect Wi-Fi, making updates impossible. Similarly, if the device is turned off, it obviously can't run any processes, including updates. So, in short, for overnight updates to happen smoothly, the iPad must be both charging and on Wi-Fi. What action must be taken to view criteria beyond your top 30 most yields creating an advanced computer search? Select one answer. A. Open the Configuration Profiles section. B. Enable Developer Mode. C. Click Refresh Criteria. D. Click Show Advanced Criteria. Correct answer. D. Click Show Advanced Criteria. Let's break this down to understand why this is the correct step. When creating an advanced computer search in Jamf Pro, the interface by default displays your 30 most used criteria fields. However, sometimes the data you need is outside this frequently used list. To access the full range of searchable fields, you need to click the Show Advanced Criteria button. This reveals all available fields, giving you more flexibility and precision in your search. Clicking Refresh Criteria won't expand your list. It simply updates the visible fields with any recent changes. Enabling Developer Mode is unrelated and unnecessary for search operations. Opening the Configuration Profiles section deals with device settings, not search criteria. So remember, when you want to search beyond the defaults, click Show Advanced Criteria. An admin wants to adjust the fields shown during a simple mobile device search in Jamf Pro. What is the first step they should take? Select one answer. A. Open the Devices menu and choose Search. B. Go to Settings and select Inventory Display. C. Use the Smart Groups menu to create a new filter. D. Navigate to Mobile Device Apps and select Display Options. Correct answer. B. Go to Settings and select Inventory Display. Let's take a multiple choice. To modify the visible fields during a simple mobile device search, the admin must begin in the Settings section of Jamf Pro. Specifically, they need to navigate to Inventory Display under Device Management. This is where field visibility for search results can be customized. Now, while it may seem intuitive to use the Devices menu and jump into a search, that only runs a query. It does not alter how results appear. Similarly, smart groups help define device criteria dynamically but have nothing to do with what search fields are visible. Lastly, navigating to mobile device apps and selecting display options is not a recognized workflow in Jamf Pro. So again, to customize those search fields, the correct starting point is go to Settings and select Inventory Display. What happens when a book is scoped to a user but managed requirements are not met? Select one answer. A. The book fails to install. B. The book is made available in self-service. C. The book is removed from the user's inventory. D. The device is automatically unenrolled. Correct answer. B. The book is made available in self-service. Let's explore this choice. When a book is scoped to a user and the managed installation requirements aren't met, Jamf Pro doesn't let the process fail outright. Instead, it falls back to offering the book in self-service. This ensures that the user still has access to the book even if it cannot be installed automatically. Now, the book failing to install entirely is incorrect because fallback behavior is specifically designed to avoid that situation. Also, removing the book from the user's inventory is not how scoping works. Once scoped, it remains available in some form. Lastly, automatic unenrollment of the device never happens as a result of book deployment failure. So again, the correct behavior in this scenario is that the book is made available in self-service. Which of the following attributes is found in the user and location category? Select three answers. A. Email address. B. Building. C. Department. D. Cache limit. Correct answers. A. Email address. B. Building. C. Department. Let's go through the explanation. User and location category in Jamf Pro includes attributes that help associate devices with specific individuals and places within an organization. This includes email address, which identifies the user, building, which indicates the physical location, and department, which shows organizational alignment. On the other hand, cache limit is not part of this category. It falls under content caching, which deals with how much data can be stored locally for faster distribution and not user or location data. So once again, the correct attributes under user and location are email address, building, and department. Which remote command permanently erases Mac, including MDM and all Jamf settings? Select one answer. A. Set activation lock. B. Wipe computer. C. Renew MDM profile. D. Remove user correct. B. Wipe computer. Now let's go ahead and make a choice. The wipe computer command is designed to completely erase all data, including MDM enrollment and Jamf Pro configurations. This is typically used when decommissioning a device or preparing it for a new user. In contrast, set activation lock simply locks the device to prevent unauthorized access, but it doesn't delete any data. Renew MDM profile only updates the existing management profile settings without affecting data. Remove user, on the other hand, deletes a specific user account but retains all other system data and configurations. So again, for a full system wipe that removes everything tied to Jamf Pro, the correct action is wipe computer. Where do you navigate in Jamf Pro to create a static group? Select one answer. A. Settings, Device Management, Static Groups. B. Devices or computers or users, Static Groups. C. Policies, Static Group Configuration. D. Inventory Reporting, Static Group. B. Devices or computers or users, Static Groups. Now let's go ahead and explain this. To create a static group in Jamf Pro, you must navigate directly to the inventory section. That means going to either devices, computers, or users, and then selecting static groups. This is the only area where you can manually create and manage membership for static groups. On the other hand, the option Settings, Device Management, Static Groups is incorrect because static groups aren't managed through the Settings menu. Similarly, Policies Static Group Configuration is misleading since policies are used to configure device behavior, not manage group creation. Lastly, Inventory Reporting. Static groups is not valid because reports are used to analyze data, not define group structures. So again, to create a static group, always start from devices, computers, or users, and go to static groups. What is the recommended method for updating macOS devices using Jamf Pro? Select one answer. A. Use Apple Remote Desktop. B. Use Manage Software Updates. C. Create shell scripts and run them on startup. D. Manually trigger App Store updates. Correct answer, B. Manage software updates. Let's go ahead and explain this. The best approach to managing macOS updates at scale through Jamf Pro is to use the Manage Software Updates feature. This method is specifically designed for this purpose and allows for centralized, automated, and policy-based control over when and how updates are applied across all enrolled macOS devices. On the other hand, using Apple Remote Desktop might work for one-off remote control actions, but it's not scalable or efficient for software updates across multiple devices. Writing custom shell scripts and executing them during startup introduces inconsistency, potential errors, and lack of visibility into the update process. Lastly, manually triggering App Store updates doesn't offer centralized control or tracking, making it unsuitable for enterprise-level deployment. Therefore, managed software updates provide the most reliable and secure method to maintain macOS devices at scale using Jamf Pro. You want to remotely wipe a MacBook running macOS 12.3 that supports erase all content and settings. What happens if this fails during pre-flight? Select one answer. A. The fallback behavior, usually a full erase, is triggered. B. Jamf Pro switches to re-enrolling the device. C. The computer is locked with a 6-digit passcode. D. The command fails and does nothing. Correct answer? A. The fallback behavior usually triggered. Let's now break this down. When you send a remote wipe command to a Mac with support for erase all content and settings, Jamf Pro attempts to use that method first because it's quick and preserves provisioning. However, if that method fails during the pre-flight check, Jamf Pro doesn't just stop there. Instead, it automatically triggers a fallback behavior, which typically involves a full erase of the device. This ensures the wipe command is still carried out, just through a more comprehensive approach. Option B is incorrect because Jamf Pro doesn't automatically attempt to re-enroll the device as a fallback. Option C refers to the lock computer command, which is a separate action unrelated to wiping. Option D is also incorrect, as the system never simply gives up without taking further action. It always reverts to the fallback method. So in the event of a failure during erase all content and settings, you can count on the fallback, usually a full erase, to still secure the device. Which two update options are available globally for all App Store apps in Jamf Pro? Select answers. A. Schedule automatic app updates. B. Set time-based MDM reboots. C. Automatically force app updates. D. Assign multiple Apple IDs. Correct answer. App updates. C. Automatically force app updates. Go ahead and explain. When managing App Store apps through Jamf Pro, administrators have two global settings that ensure apps stay up to date across all devices. First is the ability to schedule automatic app updates. This setting performs a daily check and sync to determine whether new versions of apps are available, helping ensure users always have the latest app features and fixes without manual intervention. Second, Jamf Pro allows you to automatically force app updates, which means as soon as a device checks in with Jamf Pro, it will immediately install any pending updates for managed apps. This provides timely app delivery and reliance on user action. Option B, setting time-based MDM reboots, has no direct relation to app updates and is typically used for reboot management. Option D, assigning multiple Apple IDs, is unnecessary because device-based app deployment in Jamf doesn't require Apple ID assignment at all. So the two correct update options available globally are schedule automatic app updates and automatically force app updates. An IT administrator needs to identify all Macs that recently updated to macOS Sonoma in order to validate application compatibility. What's the most efficient method to ensure Jamf Pro reflects this information in real time? Select one answer. A. Manually run Jamf Recon on every Mac after the update. B. Wait for the scheduled weekly inventory update policy to run. C. Rely on the declarative status channel to automatically report the change. Send a mass MDM command to query the OS version. Correct answer, C. Rely on declarative status channel auto reporting. Let's now explain. The declarative status channel is designed to provide real-time updates for key inventory data, including macOS version changes. It operates auto, sending information back to Jamf Pro without needing manual or scheduled intervention. This makes it ideal for administrators who want immediate insight into OS updates, like a recent upgrade to macOS Sonoma. Meanwhile, manually running Recon on each Mac as in Option A is time-consuming and impractical at scale. Option B, relying on a scheduled inventory policy, delays visibility, which undermines the goal of real-time reporting. Option D, sending a mass MDM command, introduces unnecessary steps and does not offer the speed or automation of the declarative status channel. Therefore, to ensure instant visibility into macOS updates across all devices, the best approach is to rely on the declarative status channel to automatically report. What does clicking the search button in the GSX section of computer inventory do? Select one answer. A. Finds missing apps. B. Pops purchasing information from Apple Service Exchange. C. Updates software license usage. D. Pushes MDM commands. Correct answer, B. Populates purchasing information from Apple Service Exchange. Let's take a moment to explain this choice. Clicking the search button in the GSX section of inventory triggers a lookup with Apple's Global Service Exchange. This integration is specifically used to retrieve and populate purchasing information for devices, such as the purchase date and warranty status, helping organizations validate ownership and warranty coverage. In contrast, Option A is incorrect because GSX does not search for missing apps. App inventory is managed through Jamf's own reporting tools. Option C is unrelated since license usage is tracked and updated separately, not via the GSX lookup. And D, pushing MDM commands, is done through the Management tab in Jamf Pro, not the GSX interface. So if you want to enrich your inventory with accurate purchase information directly from Apple, the GSX search button is the right tool to use. A technician wants a policy to reattempt up to 10 times if it fails. What condition must be met for retries to occur? Select one answer. A, the policy must be scheduled login. B, the policy must use recurring check-in. C, the retry option must be enabled under automatically rerun on failure. D, the computer must belong to a static group. Correct answer, C. The retry option must be enabled under automatically rerun on failure. Now let's explain why this is the correct choice. In Jamf Pro, if you want a policy to retry multiple times after a failure, you need to enable the retry mechanism. This is done under the policy settings by selecting automatically rerun on failure. It's the only setting that directly controls how many retry attempts can be made when the initial policy execution fails. On the other hand, scheduling the policy at login only defines when it triggers, but does not influence retry logic. Similarly, recurring check-ins simply define the frequency of device check-ins and do not govern retry conditions. Lastly, group membership, such as belonging to a static group, has no bearing on retry behavior. So, to ensure that a failed policy is reattempted up to 10 times, the key requirement is enabling the retry option under automatically rerun on failure. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Using self-service allows users to install software immediately without submitting a help desk ticket. Correct answer? True. Policies configured for self-service require a defined trigger like recurring check-in. Correct answer? False. The act of the user selecting a policy in self-service acts as the trigger. Correct answer, true. Policies with once per computer execution frequency remain visible in self-service after running. Correct answer, false. Now let's explain each answer. Using self-service allows users to install software immediately without submitting a help desk ticket. This is true because self-service empowers users to install approved tools on demand, avoiding delays and IT intervention. Policies configured for self-service require a defined trigger, like recurring check-in, is false. Self-service policies don't rely on predefined triggers. The user's click within self-service serves as the trigger itself. The act of the user selecting a policy in self-service as a trigger is true. When a user selects an item in self-service, it immediately initiates the policy, replacing the need for automated triggers like login or check-in. Policies with once per computer execution frequency remain visible in self-service after running is false. Once the policy runs successfully, it is removed from self-service unless it is set to ongoing, which keeps it visible for future use. You manage a fleet of supervised iPhones in your organization. You recently updated them to iOS 18.4. A few devices remain locked and unused for extended periods, impacting device rotation. You're considering using a new MDM feature to resolve this. Select one answer. No, the MDM protocol doesn't support automatic restart in active devices. B. Yes, iOS 18.4 introduces an MDM command that restarts locked devices after inactivity. C. No, supervised mode prevents any remote restart functionality. D. Yes, you can schedule restarts for all Apple devices regardless of supervision. Correct answer. B. Yes, iOS 18.4 command that restarts locked devices after inactivity. Now let's break it down. This new feature in iOS 18.4 enables Jamf Pro and other MDM platforms to send a command that restarts locked devices automatically after they've been inactive for some time. This helps IT teams reclaim and refresh unused devices in shared environments like classrooms or office kiosks. Option A is outdated because iOS 18.4 adds this capability. Option C misunderstands how supervision works. Supervision enables commands like restart, it doesn't block them. And option D is incorrect because scheduled restarts only apply to supervised devices, not all Apple devices. So iOS 18.4's new restart command is the right solution for managing idle, locked iPhones in your fleet. What two types of volumes make up the iOS and iPadOS file system? Select two answers. A. Data volume. B. System volume. C. Cache volume. D. User volume. Correct answer. Data volume. Let's take a moment. The iOS and iPadOS file system is structured with two key volumes. The first is the data volume, which stores all the user-specific content such as app data, documents, and personal files. This volume is writable and unique to each device. The second is the system volume, which is read-only and contains the core operating system files. It is sealed and protected, meaning users or apps cannot modify it, thereby ensuring OS integrity and reducing the risk of tampering. On the other hand, the options cache volume and user volume are misleading. Cache volume is not a recognized part of the file structure in iOS or iPadOS. Similarly, although the data volume holds user data, there is no distinct user volume as a separate partition. Therefore, the correct answer remains data volume and system volume. Which payload allows you to rotate the management account password on a Mac? Select one answer. A. Management account. B. Local accounts. C. EFI password. D. Scripts. Correct answer A. Management account. Now let's take to management account payload in Jamf Pro is specifically designed to manage and rotate the password for the management account on a Mac. This is a key security feature that allows IT administrators to periodically change credentials without manual intervention. In contrast, the local accounts payload are used intended for user-level accounts and does not provide the same capability for the management account. Similarly, EFI password pertains to firmware protection and has nothing to do with user credentials. While scripts can technically rotate passwords, they are not the recommended or secure method for this purpose within Jamf. Therefore, the correct and intended method for rotating the management account password is through the management account payload.